All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our 2022 municipal election all candidates forum. We have a nice full house. I'm really excited to see that. So thank you to everybody for showing up and everybody who's following us online, live streaming. My name is Cheryl Montgomery and I am the CEO of the Fort St. John and District Chamber of Commerce. And I brought my pal Ted Sloan with me tonight. And we're going to be trying to corral some of these cats here and get some answers and some questions to some really important questions that are going to be affecting our next 4 years and our upcoming council who's representing our city, who is making decisions on behalf of our city. And it's important that we all engage and that we all be part of this process. So I really appreciate that you've all joined us tonight. We are implementing a new sort of format tonight because we have so many candidates. We've split it into 2 evenings, as you know. Tomorrow the mayors will face off. But tonight we're going to do a little bit of a different format. Ted's going to explain it more. But basically the candidates will get to kind of choose a couple of their questions that they're going to answer because we want to get in a really robust round of questions rather than having 4 questions that everybody gets to answer. And we thought this way we'd be able to have a broader spectrum of, issues that are affecting the city and have some different answers rather than repetition on the same question and the same answers. So Ted's going to explain that a little bit further. I think we're ready to roll. We don't want to talk too much. We've got a full crowd. And so I want to introduce Ted, who's going to moderate tonight. I'm the timekeeper for you guys. You're going to get a 20-second warning, and then I'll flash a red light, and then the next flash is for you to stop. All right? Ted's going to take over. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and our esteemed candidates, all those in attendance and all those watching at home. Courtesy of Energetic City Moose FM. Thank you, Adam. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that the land that we are situated on is in Treaty 8 territory, on the traditional lands of the Dene-Zah, of the Doig River First Nations, Blueberry River First Nations, and the Halfway River First Nation, where we live and learn today. Again, my name is Ted. I'm honored to be your moderator. Before we begin, I do have to go over some housekeeping things. Candidates, there are a lot of you, and it's very exciting. It's nice to see some returning faces and some new faces. So as Cheryl was mentioning, we have changed our format. Our candidates have in front of them 4 different cards. And how this works is this. I'm going to pose a question to our panel, and if they choose to answer, they will raise one of their answer cards. So they also have the choice not to answer. Once they have gone through all 3 of their cards throughout the night, they will no longer be able to answer that question. Now, that being said, they do have 1 response card. If that question has been posed, all the candidates have answered their questions, and a candidate still feels like they need to either jump in and add something, or they'd like to add, they can put up their response card. In other news, or in other ways of saying this, our candidates will have the ability to answer 4 questions tonight. We will also be giving the public a chance to ask questions later, and at that point, candidates, everybody may answer. We're not going to limit that at all. I'm truly excited and keen to hear what you have to say about the pressing issues of Fort St. John, and to each and one of you, I wish you the absolute best tonight. My job is to keep us on track, to be aware of time with Cheryl, and to step in case of unnecessary conflict. At each new segment, I'm going to remind you of just how much time you have and how much time you don't have in order to be as helpful as possible. Again, I appreciate you showing up tonight, and I appreciate the respect that you will show each other tonight. Audience, I am super pumped to see you. I teach high school, and I'm like, this is important, and you guys are proving that as why. This is democracy in action. I'm also thankful for your respectful nature. Our city works best when we work together, and tonight, we work together by letting our candidates speak and be heard, even if we might not agree with them. At this time, I ask that your cell phones are on silent, and that you keep quiet, so that others may hear tonight, and you don't interrupt with outbursts. We are going to just test this timing system so that you guys are aware. Cheryl, this is our timing clock. Do you mind turning on that light just for a second? Candidates, with 20 seconds to go, she will flash that light once. The second time she flashes it, if you are still talking, I will step in and say thank you and end your speech there. We are going to start with our opening segments, our opening remarks. You've each been given 2.5 minutes to remind us why we should vote for you. The order is determined, we're going to go down one side for the opening statements. So Trevor, you are first, the greatest shall be last, but then when we do our closing statements, Tony, you will be first, and Trevor will be last. So you will each have 2.5 minutes. We will start with you, Mr. Boland. Essentially, I will say 3, 2, and then on your own time whenever you would like to start. So here we are, getting our timers out. 3, 2, on your own time, sir.
Thanks, Ted. I don't know if you can all hear me. Thank you all for coming. I'd like to start by thanking the Denizhaw people for allowing us to be here and for this community and its people to prosper. My name is Trevor Boland. I'm running for my 5th term on City Council for the City of Fort St. John. I've been very fortunate to have been elected for 4 terms since I was about 28 years old. Ted talks about how important it is for young people to be involved and to vote and to come to events like this, but it's just as important for them to run for council, and that's what I did at that age. And what I did at that time is the same thing I'm going to do today, and that's ensure that the community is communicated with. I'm going to ensure that it is open and transparent. I'm going to ensure that whether people see me in the street, see me in the grocery store, or see me online, they've got questions. I've either got the answer or I'll find out the answer. We need to worry about the city's financial sustainability. We need to continue pushing further. We need to continue for growth. We need to keep working on our capital. I believe Fort St. John's in a better position right now than it's ever been. And I can say that because my family's been here since 1926. We haven't left then, we're not going to leave now. So at no point in time am I here for a good or a greater good other than the city of Fort St. John. And that's what matters to me most. So I do have 2 boys. I am married. My boys are 13 and 16 years old. They absolutely love everything about Fort St. John. They've gone through the school system here, actually the same school as I did, growing up here. And I'm a small business owner. I own businesses in Fort St. John, Dawson Creek, Grand Prairie, and other communities. So I am certainly invested in other areas. So it's not always just about my businesses. It is about my family. It is about my friends. And at the end of the day, no matter what, it's about my community, and it's about you guys in this room and the people that are watching us live, because without all of you, we wouldn't matter, and the city certainly wouldn't be in the condition it is. So I'm asking you to work with me, to put your trust in me. Let's do this one more time, and let's finish what we started. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you, Trevor. You got this, Amy. I'll say 3, 2, and then on your own time, all right? Here we are in 3, 2, on your own time.
Can we hear? There we go. Takes a minute to click in. Hi, I'm Amy Cox. I am brand new to all this, very green hat. I was not born in Fort St. John, but I moved here in 2002. My father works in the forestry industry, and my mother was working for Northern Health. I went to high school here, I graduated, I met the love of my life here, we bought a house. We want to raise a family here. We had a little bit of a 5-year plan to get out, but I am very happy to say that I'm committed to the future of Fort St. John. We do love it here. This is our community. We love how we're becoming more diverse and supportive. One of the reasons why I chose to run was last year during the by-election. I had noticed that there is a disconnect between our community and City Council, and I want to help try to bridge the gap with communication. And I love this community and I love the people, and I'm always out and talking to people, and I just would very much appreciate a chance. I was not a part of Toastmasters. I'm very nervous at the moment. Do excuse me. This is very fun, and I really appreciate being here in front of you guys. This is something that I became quite passionate about, and I would love to have the chance to be a vessel between City Council and our wonderful citizens of this town. I'm also a small business owner. I started at the beginning of this year. I own a landscaping company called Duck Landscaping. So I'm very proud of our small communities that help build the strength within our economy. And I'm very proud of our oil and gas industry. I don't know what else to say at the moment. I appreciate you guys listening. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you. I see you clicking your microphone on, Mr. Lau. Here we are, in 3, 2, on your own time.
Hey, my name is Al Goldie, and I work for BC Timber Sales as the Indigenous Relations Team Lead for the Peace Yard business area. I strive to build working relationships with local Indigenous communities while supporting the forestry industry. I am running in this election to be a positive voice for our home. My vision coming into this race is to add my skills in project management, communications, and Indigenous relations to the leadership of the City of Fort St. John that will create a vibrant community that celebrates the diversity of all cultures, creates balance in our resource sector with sustainable technologies, and is home to both young and young at heart. I'm passionate about our community, and I'm looking forward to being an advocate for our city with all levels of government. I'm focused on providing fiscally responsible management of our infrastructure, being forward-thinking in our community planning, and building for the future. I'm excited to celebrate a community that is welcoming to all. But let me tell you a little bit about me. I was born in a small Alberta town called Tofield, but my family moved around a lot because my dad was in the military. I like to say that I'm very much a prairie boy, as I grew up in all the prairie provinces. My dad retired out of the military, and we became farmers raising horses and Texas Longhorn cattle. I went to university in Saskatoon at the U of S and came out with a bachelor's in archaeology and anthropology. I have been a professional consulting archaeologist for 10 years and worked on a variety of resource industry developments, mostly in Fort McMurray and Central Alberta for Enbridge and Shell Canada. In 2015, I arrived with only 3 suitcases to Fort St. John. I took a chance on a 6-month contract and left Calgary when the oil and gas industry took a downturn and there was no available work for me. That was 7 years ago, and I have made a home here in Fort St. John, and I've never looked back. Professionally speaking, Fort St. John has given me career advancement and opportunities that I couldn't get anywhere else. And personally, my involvement in nonprofits within Fort St. John has created a network of people that have not only been inclusive and incredible to work with, but their enthusiasm and energy creates a community that I am proud to call home. I want to promote that because we have a community worth planting.
You're very close to the end, but I am going to cut you off. Thank you, Lyle. Thank you, Shale. Gord, does your mic have a little green light on it?
It certainly does, yes, thank you.
Awesome. 3, 2, on your own time.
Thanks, Ted. Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you and commend you for coming tonight. It does show your interest and commitment to our community, and we appreciate that. My name is Gord Clausen, and I am running for my 4th term on council. I'm trying to catch up to Trevor, but he keeps running, so I'll just keep running after him. This is where I grew up. I went to school here. I got my first job, married, and my wife, Sharon, and we raised our 3 children here, and this is our home. I've served this community as a pastor, volunteer firefighter, school support worker, and a member of the school board. I was executive director of the Hospital Foundation and co-chair of the Multicultural Society. And I've done all of these things because I love this community, and I would just want to help make it the best place to live. This past term, we've seen many improvements and many enhancements to our community, like our new Festival Plaza and upgrades to many of our parks. We've paved more streets, constructed new sidewalks, and expanded our trail system. And over the next 4 years, I hope to enhance our quality of life here in this community by advocating for appropriate levels of health care, more affordable housing, more seniors housing, and hopefully get to work on that new pool and leisure facility. I'll promote accessibility and diversity so that we can all feel like this is a place where we are welcome and wanted. I look forward to more partnerships with individuals, businesses, and nonprofits, bringing together our experience, expertise, and our knowledge for the benefit of the entire community. I'll continue to promote investment and economic development, guided by strategic planning and policies, and I will ensure that Council has a balanced and well-informed perspective before we spend your tax dollars. On a personal note, my hope for Fort St. John is that it continues to be a city that is financially sound and sustainable. As your neighbor and your fellow taxpayer, I'm committed to making this community an affordable place to live and do business. Having my own children and grandchildren living here, it's a priority for me that this be a safe community and that it have top quality healthcare, and so I'm committed to that as well. I want to keep working towards a city that is vibrant and active with beautiful parks and trails and flourishing arts and culture community, energetic sports and recreation and facilities that will allow for all that to happen. I envision a place that is full of true neighbors helping each other and working together to make this the best place to live. And I just want to ask you to support me. I believe that I have certain aspects, talents, skills to bring to council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next in the order, Jim, it is your turn.
Yes, am I coming in okay there?
Yeah, you sound
Yes.
great.
Okay,
On your own
thank
time,
you.
sir.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to thank everyone for coming this evening, and I'd like to formally introduce myself. My name is Jim LeQuire, and I'm running for re-election in the Fort St. John civic election. Last May, I won a seat on City Council by winning the by-election, and at that time, I really enjoyed winning the by-election, and I'm not finished serving my community and the needs of the families and citizens of Fort St. John. My priorities then, and the same are today, fiscal responsibility on city spending, a good quality of lifestyle for our Fort St. John families and citizens, economic development and growth within our city limits and downtown core, housing for seniors, and having our citizens being able to access timely and quality health care in our community. I have lived, worked, and raised my family in Fort St. John for 38 years and have been happily married for 43 years to my beautiful wife, Cheryl. I'm a father of 2 and grandfather of 4 and proudly owned by 2 canines. Over the years, I've sat on many executive boards, including Fort St. John Minor Hockey, Soccer, and Baseball, and I'm also the president of the Josh LeQuire Society, which is a Canadian registered charity, and to date, with the help of our corporate sponsors, family and friends, we have helped 151 local Fort St. John underprivileged children and youth financially to be able to play an organized sport or good healthy physical activity. I'm also a dual-ticketed tradesperson that worked 30 plus years in the natural gas industry, and currently, and for the last 5 years, I've been a substitute teacher in School District 60 in middle school and the North Peace High School. In closing, the civic election is the most important election for you and your family, as it affects your quality of life the most on a daily basis. So please, get out and vote on October the 15th, with early voting on October the 5th and the 12th. Thank you very much.
Next up is Sarah McDougall. Sarah, does your mic have a little green light on it? Perfect. All right, I'll say 3, 2, and then on your own time. So here we go, 3, 2, on your own time.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to thank all of you for coming out tonight. It's great to see such a full house, and thank you to the organizers of this event to get us all here answering some questions and talking about the issues today. I'm Sarah McDougall, and I've been a proud Fort St. John resident for 15 years. I moved here after university to accept a position with Northern Health, and I've been in the healthcare sector ever since. I've worked on the front line and worked my way up to a team lead position. And it's through that time that I've developed skills like leadership and collaboration, critical and strategic thinking, an open-minded approach. And all of these, I think, would lend well to council. I'm also very active in the community. I love to volunteer, whether that's through my church or my children's activities or schools. And I even just love to get out to events like this. If I wasn't here, I'd be there. I'm also active on several boards. I'm currently transitioning off the board of the Totem Preschool, where I've sat as the treasurer for the past 3 terms. I'm also the vice chair of the North Peace Gymnastics Association and a director with North Peace Savings and Credit Union. I believe it's important to serve your community and give back in any way that you can. I've also been married for 13 years to my wonderful husband, Scott, and together we have 4 daughters and 1 very energetic dog. I'm running today because I'd like to be a voice to help address some of the issues affecting Fort St. John. We'll have a lot of time to address those issues this evening, but I believe I bring a valuable perspective to that table. A perspective that I've developed over the years through my time in healthcare and as the mother of 4 young children who are active in this community. They attend local schools, they go to local organizations, and we use the amenities and services that are here. So I believe this valuable viewpoint would help council and help us to just continue to improve our community. I'd like to see Fort St. John thrive. So thank you. I hope you'll enjoy this informative evening.
Unfortunately, not all of our candidates were able to make it today, so we're going to go straight to Byron Stewart. Byron, you've got your microphone there. Excellent. I'll count you in 3, 2, and here we are. 3, 2, on your own time.
Thank you, Ted. My name is Byron Stewart, and I am running for re-election for your Fort St. John City Council. Making our city a better place to live, work, and play takes hard work and commitment. It is work that I get excited about, am excited about. I look forward to continuing the conversations and advocating for our community through relationships that have been established prior to, and talking about and continuing the conversations in regards to healthcare, public safety, economic development, and educational opportunities for our youth. I grew up here in Fort St. John along with my brother Dave. Our mom was a nurse. She worked at the old hospital here in town. And she worked here for many years as the RN, and then she left the health field to raise my brother and I. Later, she returned to the workforce as a legal secretary and worked that way until she lost her battle with cancer. Our father, he was the fire chief here at Fort St. John for 23 years. He retired in 1998 and then was fortunate enough to be elected to City Council and represented our community for several years after that until he also lost his battle with cancer. I've seen our community grow from me being a young kid, the gravel roads that we've had in the community. I grew up in Annafield, and we had one paved road in Annafield at that point in time. It's come a long ways. I've seen our community grow into a beautiful place. Our population has grown, infrastructure has improved and grown, our boundaries have expanded. The investment opportunities in our community have continued to grow each year. We see more and more coming to our community, more amenities, more growth, more opportunities for families, more opportunity, period. Also, multiculturalism within our community has grown so much. We have so many cultural activities, so many groups of people now that growing up here, we just didn't have. And the understanding of that multiculturalism is extremely important. It's wonderful to see in our community. We have much to be proud of. I can honestly say I love Fort St. John. And we have much to do to continue to improve our community today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, and the many years to come. I'm asking for your vote. I'm happy to see everyone here. Thank you very much.
I have no green light.
You got this. On your own time, sir.
Thank you, Ted, Cheryl, and the Fort St. John District Chamber of Commerce for you guys for coming out and the people online and watching. My name is Tony Zabinski, and I'm seeking re-election for the second time. I've been in this community for 26 years. I am retired, and I call this place home. I was first elected in 2018 for the solid traditional values of honesty, integrity, and unwavering financial integrity. These values I still hold dearly to me today and believe in. I have a solid understanding of various industries in our region. Over the 30 years, I have been a personal banker, commercial banker, small business. I will continue to be a team player for you guys out there to provide the expertise and make sure that we do things right. I believe there's more to be done to make our community better, and I will continue to be a strong advocate for you at the table. If elected, I am committed to low property taxes, senior housing, affordable housing for seniors, and housing that will attract investment opportunities and jobs in our community. I will also work on fostering economic growth by promoting our city's assets that will retain and attract skilled workers so that we can prosper in our community. I believe in working with businesses and industries is the only way that this is going to work, and they have to be heard. I believe in promoting a healthy community, having great recreational projects, parks and leisure facilities. And I believe we need a new pool and a rec complex as we move forward and for the future. That aging facilities is costing us money and it's costing us dearly. So we have to get this done right. Because if we don't, it's just going to cost us a lot in the end. Fort St. John is your city and you deserve to know how and why decisions are made. And that I'm going to do on your behalf. I'm committed to being transparent and always have been and accountable to ensure that the city and the Fort St. John's is on the same page for economic growth. I hear your concerns loud and clear. I'm committed to addressing these challenges so that people of all backgrounds and income can live, work, and play in our great community. I'm an advocate for being a volunteer in our community. I sit on a lot of boards, Regional District, Northern Lights Foundation, Peace River.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zabinski. Tony Zabinski. Candidates, I do want to congratulate you. To stand up and talk for 2.5 minutes under pressure is not something easily done. At this point, we're going to go into our question period. So tonight, we're going to go through our 8 different topics, from our economy to Indigenous relations to culture and art and more. Just a reminder, you do have your question cards ahead of you. And again, just a reminder for those, I will ask the question. If you choose to answer it, you can raise your card. And then after everyone has answered, if you still have something to say, you can hold up a response card. It will probably be a fun ride the first times we do this, so thank you for your patience. Question number 1. Our city definitely feels peaks and valleys when it comes to provincial and national economies. What should the city continue to do to make our local economy sustainable? Or what should we do differently? I'll say it again while you're thinking about answering. What should the city continue doing to make our local economy sustainable? Or what should we do differently? Would anyone, we have Gord, you'd like to go, and Mr. Zabinski, Tony. Also, I apologize, a lot of these people were my coaches, so I will call them Mr. and Mrs. and let me know if that's not okay. So we have Gord, Tony, anyone else? Fantastic, you gentlemen will have 2 minutes each. I believe, Cheryl, I just want to make sure, it's 1 minute, 1 minute for response, 2 minutes for answers, I believe. Let's consult I'm just getting my books. Yes, you get 2 minutes to answer. Yes, so you get an extra minute. Mr. Clausen, you will start, please.
Thanks, Ted. Hello, there we go. Thanks, Ted. I wrote a couple things down today and just in preparation for this evening, and I've spoken with many of you as I went door to door over the last couple of weeks, and you've got concerns about our economy. Obviously, we have ups and downs, we know that. We need to be prepared for both the good times and the times when we have challenges. And I think what we need to do is just continue to strategically promote investment and economic diversification in our community. We need to ensure that our strategic planning and our priorities and policies will facilitate efficient business licensing and development permitting processes. We need to make sure that that is as smooth as possible so that we can encourage people to come and invest and open up their businesses here. We also need to ensure that our business taxes are affordable and do all that we can within our existing businesses to grow and to prosper. And when others see that growth and that opportunity here in this community, they will want to be part of it as well. I'm committed to actively promoting our community to potential investors, but also equally devoted and dedicated to protecting our community and making sure that when a business comes in, we are protected and that it's for the good of the community as a whole. And I think that's important. We're fortunate that our economy has been very diversified and it now includes a wide variety of services and economic opportunities. We need to continue this trend and encourage that diversity in our community. Finally, we need to create a community that draws the kind of investment that we want. It's not enough to argue that we have the numbers to justify a business to come here. We need to create an environment that attracts workers and their families, because without the people to run it, the businesses will not survive and certainly will not thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Gord. Not because I don't like your applause, but because we want to make sure that we're here throughout the time, so we'll hold our applause to the end. Mr.
Thanks,
Zabinski.
Ted.
Excellent. On your own time, sir.
Thanks, Ted. listen, we have to make sure, as Gord has mentioned, that our taxes for businesses are affordable. Businesses talk to businesses, and they're the ones who are going to drive what happens here. We could go out there and promote it, but they're going to talk to other businesses that what goes on in our community, and it goes on. Listen, I talk to them all the time, and they want to know what's happening in Fort St. John versus what's happening in another community. We have the ups and downs, and we've always had that ups and downs, just because that is where we live and we operate. But that can be smoothed out. We have an opportunity to work with First Nations, and they are going to sit down and smooth this out for us as they diversify themselves, as they come into our community. The options are up to us how we're going to deal with this, and what it really comes down to is us as council and you guys to see what we want to have in here. It could be opening up our zoning to allow different businesses to come in here, but we have to hear it from you. Where is it going to come from? It comes from the businesses for the business. So that being said, it's going to continue. We are going to have ups and downs. There's no way we're going to smooth this thing out, and we're going to have, but we are going to have a lot of growth coming in our community in the next little while. So stay tuned, be prepared, and get involved in it. Thank you.
So before we applaud, does anyone have any response to that? Fantastic. We can give a round of applause to that question if you so choose. Thank you, sir. Question number 2 delves into healthcare. Healthcare and access to it are things that bring up a lot of emotions in the North. In your view, what does the city need to do to ensure that our citizens get the best care when it comes to our health? I'll read that one more time while you ponder if you'd like to answer. Healthcare and access are things that bring up a lot of emotions in the North. In your view, what does the city need to do to ensure that our citizens get the best care when it comes to our health? Byron would like to answer. Sarah, you as well. And I can see your card, Lyle, too. We will start from this side and we'll make our way this way. Byron, you have 2 minutes on your own time.
Thanks, Ted. Healthcare is, without any doubt, one of the most important aspects of any community. As a city, we have to partner as best we can with the service providers, which are Northern Health and our not-for-profit agencies. We need to work on the partnership itself in not only the recruitment, but the retention aspect of holding on to the healthcare professionals that we do have currently and the ones that we wish to attract. The partnerships go in many aspects. We need to look at affordable housing. We need to look at incentive programs, not just money, but incentive programs of what makes our community so much more special than every other community within the province or every other community within our nation. As we are all attempting to pull in the same people, the same professionals that are needed in every community right across our country. And that ranges from the doctors and nurses that make the front pages of the paper right down to the x-ray techs and the labs and everyone throughout our hospital, throughout our care centers, throughout our community. And we need to show off our community and make them feel comfortable. As a municipality, going out to other communities and trying to pull them in is one aspect, but we also have a nursing school here in the community now. We need to make connections and have those people know that they are loved, they are wanted, supported. We want to keep them long term. A 2-year cycle within a Northern Health is not long enough for anybody to establish roots within our community, and we need to extend that. We need to have those conversations.
Thank you, Byron. We'll move on. Sarah, you are our next candidate on your own time.
Okay, thank you. So having worked in healthcare in Fort St. John for 15 years, this is something that is just so near and dear to my heart. We really need to do a better job here. So that's not just us as the city of Fort St. John, that is all the agencies. So Byron mentioned Northern Health and mentioned the not-for-profit sector. We need to start with the recruitment and retention of workers. So Northern Health needs to be advocated to increase their recruitment efforts and increase their retention efforts. I have so many ideas on this, but I will not go as in detail right now. But we can, as a city, create an environment that professionals want to come to. Create an environment that professionals want to stay in. Be that warm, inviting place that I know we are, because I am one of those folks that was recruited to here. We need to invite them into our community and let them see the community values that we have so that folks understand what a great place this is to live in. We also need to stop and take an upstream approach. So it's one thing to come into the healthcare sector when you are sick, But let's stop, let's look upstream and say, what can we do as a community to prevent folks from ever becoming sick? That takes strains off of the healthcare system. If we can prevent people from entering that, then those who have to enter it, for whatever reason, will have more access to services. I also want to consider growing our own. So promoting our youth to pursue careers in healthcare. Let's look at scholarships. How can we get into the schools and encourage folks to pursue careers in these much needed professions? Because we know that if a local student goes out and gets educated, they are more likely to come back here and they are more likely to stay here long term. I also want to look more at those foreign trained workers and see what we can do. We already have a nursing school in town. Let's see what we can do to verify that their training is adequate to work in Canada, and if it's not, let's see what we can do to fast stream them into training so that they can work in our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. And Lyle.
So much like what Brian and Sarah said, that retention and recruitment is a big struggle for our northern communities here, especially in Fort St. John. I know the pandemic did a lot to dissuade people from entering the healthcare, and a lot of people left the healthcare industry. Now, what the community can do is advocate for ourselves to Northern Health. I know there's conversation started about that, but it really is creating a community that people want to come to. I know it's been mentioned before, but really focusing on activities and health and wellness and making a healthy community for everyone that welcomes everyone, that celebrates its multiculturalism, we could attract a wide range of workers into our community. We also can help support those nonprofits that really help vulnerable populations or older communities. For example, the PRD has the Aging in Place program. That's something that the city could get really involved with. You know, helping seniors stay in a home that they're comfortable with for longer. And also other nonprofits that provide Meals on Wheels and other opportunities. It's really just advocating for ourselves and making sure that our community is something where people want to come to and they feel supported in. Thank you.
Hey, Lyle, before we, Mr. Boland, you would like to use your card to answer? You sure can. Trevor.
Thanks, Ted. You know what? Everybody's talked about recruiting and retention, and that's fantastic. Sometimes you get told no. And in the last few years, Northern Health has told the city of Fort St. John, no, we do not need your help. I can think of two occasions. One, myself, I went down and I went to the nurses' graduation ceremony in Calgary. It's a massive convention. There's nurses from all across Canada, and they are there. And Northern Health had one booth there, and that was to satisfy the 10 or 11 different communities. Well, we need to ensure, and the council going forward needs to ensure that Fort St. John always has a presence at these. The second event was actually Gord had went down to a doctor's graduation or a surgeon's graduation for the same thing. And at the same time, we were told, no, you are not needed, your services are not rendered. This council for the past 14 years has taken every doctor, every surgeon, every specialist out for dinner when they come to Fort St. John so that they know they're welcome here. We need to continue to ensure that we as a council or the council of the day, whoever it is that gets voted in this October election, is fully committed to staffing, to the preservation of our health, and to the community members of Fort St. John. And only then do we actually stop and be able to look back at what we've done, because that's what matters. There is no such thing as no. Be at the table, make it happen.
Anyone else like to add? Gord.
My last response right there. I wanted to just expand a little bit on what's been said, and I think one of the things that we do have control over as a city and as a council is our work of advocacy. We don't have a lot of say in what happens. As Councillor Boland has said, the province kind of says yes or no, and we go to them and keep going back to them. But we have done some great things, and we've worked, we became a member of the Northern Medical Programs Trust. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, out of UMBC in Prince George, and is an extension of UBC, actually, of their medical school. And we became a member of that organization, and basically the mantra there was to train in the North for the North. And so we brought that medical training to Prince George, hoping to train young people from our communities closer to home, also in rural settings, so that they got used to that and saw that it was a viable career for them. We've done a lot. The nursing school at Northern Lights College was greatly due to council advocating on behalf of our community and our city to get that in place. We had the resources. When they built a new hospital here, they built it so that it could be used as a training center. And a lot of that was, again, our advocacy. Has it been used to its full extent? No, it hasn't, and we're trying, and we continue to do that. One of the other things that we've done just recently is, not even recently, but over the past while, was advocate for more paramedics and more paramedic care in our community. And just recently, we heard the announcement that BC government has hired 208 more full-time paramedics, and Fort St. John will get 8 of those, which will make a significant difference to the health care or that emergency care for people. So we're doing what we can. We can't do everything, but we're out there advocating on behalf of our community.
Thank you, Corey. Anyone else? Excellent. We'll move on to our next question. Right now, we have many social issues facing Fort St. John. In your opinion, what is the biggest social issue, and what is your plan to work on it? Again, I'll ask that one more time as you think about answering. Right now, we have many social issues facing Fort St. John. In your opinion, what is the biggest social issue, and how do you plan on working on it? Trevor, I see your card there. I see Byron, your card as well, and Tony and Lyle. So we will start, we will go Trevor, Lyle, Byron, and Tony. No. So Trevor, you get to answer this question first.
Thanks, Ted. Something that is near and dear to my heart, of course, is addictions and mental health. We aren't even close to being where we need to be in this community in order to deal with those. We have spent the past decade and a half advocating with the province, and it doesn't matter what government was in power, it doesn't matter what ministers were there. It sometimes would feel like we'd go home and our heads were sore because we just literally beat our heads against the wall the entire time we were in the meetings. But we can't stop, and you know what? And we're not going to stop. And whether I don't think it matters where I'm at, I will never stop. You know what? I've lost loved ones to drugs. I lost my father to drugs. And you know what, there's families in the community that are destroyed because of this, and until we can ensure that we've got the help that we need, and whether it's drugs and addiction, whether it's mental illness, whether it's you know a large plethora of the issues that face our most vulnerable citizens, and it's not just people that you see on Facebook, or it's not just people you see on TV. It is your neighbors, it is your friends, it is your family. There very well could be people in this room that are deeply affected by family members that are dealing with this right now. So we will continue to champion this. I will continue to meet with the ministers. I will continue to ensure that Fort St. John is heard on a provincial and national level so that we can get the recognition we need. We until we actually have facilities here that people can get help, whether it's coming home from abroad or whether it's staying in the community and rebuilding their lives. That's going to be a big one. And you know, there's been a lot of talk lately on homeless issues and a lot of the issues that you see in the downtown. And you know what, I've stayed in front of those. I've stayed on top of those. And we've ensured that our community partners hear us at a time when citizens are crying out for help or crying out even just the questions. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that nobody ever feels like they're alone, because you know what, you can't be alone when dealing with this, and that's where we need to go.
Lyle, it is your turn next.
So much along the lines of Mr. Boland's conversation, really when I think about the inequity, I reflect on the homeless and addictions, people affected by addictions. And I really learned a lot when I attended the Overdose Awareness Day that we had on August 31st. You know, I learned a lot about the addiction issues and the fatalities that we were having in Fort St. John. Even in that 2 weeks, I think they said there was 6 fatalities to overdoses. And I know there's support for the homeless with the Salvation Army and BC Housing, but there's a lot of negative media surrounding them. I believe that we could start the conversation around addiction help and support our vulnerable populations through open houses and public educational opportunities to increase awareness and hopefully change public opinion. You know, we need to advocate for affordable accommodations to BC Housing as our city needs more of that all the time for residents of all walks of life. And we need to advocate to develop, create homes and spaces that are inclusive and accessible for young families and seniors on limited incomes. You know, work with Northern Health to encourage education around addiction and mental health support and resources, and continue to build the relationship that the city has with community organizations that are on the front line helping homeless and those in poverty. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Byron.
Thanks, Ted. Mental health and addictions is something that is, it represents the vulnerable people within our population. And it is the core of our community that needs to care for those people in any way we can. And that is through the organizations that we have, whether they are provincially funded or that they are a startup organization within our own community. The addictions and mental health affect all ages. They are not just the persons that we see on the streets. They are persons, as Trevor has mentioned. They go to work every day. They are on their highways. They have children. They are children in some cases as well. We need to find services. We need to advocate for services. We need to be in front of the ministers talking about what our needs are as a community constantly. It never should stop. Today we had a terrible thing happen to our community. Opioid van was lit on fire. This situation that we have in the community of opioids, which is across the nation, this is a setback for us as a community because of one stupid incident by likely one or two people. And it hurts our community as the service providers, the people that are Northern Health employees that are on the street. They are the frontline workers assisting people with harm reduction treatment so that they can care for themselves, care for their families in as safe of an environment as possible. And now that has been taken away and disrupted within that service. And that hurts our community. And so how do we overcome that? We need to just step back up. Those people that are our frontline workers need to step back up, shake themselves off today. I work with those people. I saw how upset they were today. And so as a community, we can do so much more. And part of that is the acceptance of the reality that mental health is true. It hurts people. Addictions is an addiction. It is a disease. And we need help with that.
Thank you very much. Tony.
It's already been said, so do I hold my green or
You can, if you choose to not to. Excellent. All right. Does anyone have any response? Jim, you have your response.
Thank you. Well, I'm no stranger to struggles of mental health and addictions in our city. I do recognize that it needs to be addressed and realize it's a provincial-wide issue. Also, people with mental health issues are more likely to struggle with substance abuse. Having a recovery and rehabilitation facility in Fort St. John is needed, and to say otherwise would be naive. I am fully in support of sourcing option between Northern Health and the City of Fort St. John for facilities and programs in Fort St. John for mental health and addictions. The bottom line is, it's long overdue and it will save lives. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Amy, you can add. Amy.
Is it?
This is your, yes, this is the response.
This is my response. Do I throw it down?
No, you're good. I'm keeping track here. Yeah, you're all set.
Okay. I do advocate for the exact same thing that everyone is speaking about. I just really wanted to add that Fort St. John also does have a large problem with domestic abuse. And what I would like to do if I am elected to City Council, I have been in communication with a lot of our first responders. I really greatly appreciate all of our first responders. I thank them very much, and I've had to deal with them in the past personally a lot. But I would like to keep communication open, and I feel that the people who deal with a lot of these problems directly, whether it's our first responders, the people who are working in the soup kitchen, Salvation Army, and the people who are just going through these problems personally are a lot of the people that we need to keep open communication with, because they can give insight that a lot of us who might not have ever been affected by a lot of these terrible situations can give insight for solutions and opportunities and answers to help aid something that is growing within our community.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else? Sarah? Yes.
Thank you. So I also just want to reiterate that this is such an important issue that we all need to be addressing and advocating for those supports and supporting nonprofits like everyone's talked about. But again, we need to take a step back and look at that upstream approach and get to people before they're in crisis. Let's get into high schools so that we can give students the tools so that they know how to respond if they feel like they're getting into a mental health crisis or a downturn, so that folks can recognize it in others. This is something that needs to be talked about openly and everywhere. This should be a conversation that we have on a regular basis because it affects each and every one of us, whether it's us personally, whether it's someone we love, whether it's someone we work with. You know somebody who has mental health crises, and you know someone who has addictions. So I would like to see more supports in our community, and I'd like to see people gotten to before they're in crisis. And I would also like to see more supports for folks who are in the criminal justice system. We know that those who have mental health and addictions are more likely to commit violent crimes, and they're even more likely to recommit if they do not receive the supports that are needed. So we need to also look at those folks as they come out and how we can support them to transition them back into regular life. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, we will move on to our next question. Our next question has to do with the energy sector. Our city is often called an oil and gas town. What things can the city of Fort St. John do to both help oil and gas and fight climate change? I'll ask that one more time while you think. Our city is often called an oil and gas town. What things can the city of Fort St. John do to help our oil and gas and fight climate change? Would anyone like to answer? Amy, that's one. Tony, this one as well. And Trevor. Excellent. We'll start. Tony, you get to go first this time.
Thank you, Ted. The oil and gas sector is already moving toward fighting climate change in various ways, and they do it behind the scenes where we don't get to see it. They do it by doing and injecting and taking care of their CO2 emissions on a high level where they inject it into the ground, back into the ground, where they've been looking at electric vehicles. Whether you like it or not, it is coming. And we're helping them along because we've sat down and got charging stations here in their community as well. The industry is always looking for advantages to move forward, and they are going to do this in a successful way, but it's going to take time, and it's not going to happen right away. We understand that as the LNG, liquid natural gas, moves forward, that is going to be sent down the line by electricity, and they're looking at ways of doing that themselves internally by producing and sending that gas electricity as well. But it's going to take time for them to look at that. But as we move forward, as our region does, and you look up at Fort Nelson, what they're looking at down in Prince George and the hydrogen reclamation that they're doing right now, it's going to evolve in our community, and it's going to have a spin-off for us. And there's going to be other businesses that are going to take advantage of this, and it's going to create jobs. But it's going to, again, this doesn't happen over time. It's a long process, although the government would like us to change it right away, but they are working on it. Thank you.
Next is Amy.
I did a small part of work in our oil and gas industry, and I know that that is why we are the energetic city. I personally am proud to live in a city that is so full of oil and gas. The oil and gas industry, Canada is one of the leaders. Actually, it is the leader in the entire world. There's nobody who compares to Canada for having as clean and as safe of an industry. We are leaders in innovation, and Fort St. John, I feel, is one of the poster children of leading the industry in trying to maintain not only our CO2 emissions and clean for the environment. We are leaders in extracting, oh, mercy. We are leaders in extracting resources. Canada, I believe, will not be beaten for that, and Fort St. John should be recognized as playing a huge part in that, and I feel it's something we should be proud of.
Thank you. And Trevor.
We started years and years ago. Her Worship, who's here tonight, the Mayor of Fort St. John, Laurie Ackerman, and myself, were the co-chair of the Energy Conference. Started originally as the Oil and Gas Conference and moved into the Energy Resources Conference. Those no longer, and from the days of those ending, we came up with an Energy Literacy Committee. The sole purpose of this committee was to act as a standalone committee that would ensure that we championed the resources in our industry. And you know, somewhere along the way, between the 1960s and today, people forgot where the power came from when you turned a light switch on. They forgot where the gasoline came from when you squeezed the handle on the pump. It just became, all of a sudden it was instantly there, and it's not instantly there. There's a family, there's a guy or a gal at the other end of that's working in -40 weather in order for that to happen for people across this province. So we need to not forget where we came from. We need to not forget who we are and the fact that we do it better and will continue to do it better than anybody else in the world. The first hole was drilled in this area and where Robert Ogilvie School sits. There's a new subdivision going in on the West Bypass where there was more holes drilled there that my dad and my family did drilling rigs, whether it was Baltic or Numat or Enzyme. And that's not going to change. And you know what? It is continually getting better. We need to ensure that we're staying in front of the media. Our message is clear. And we stand as one united for industry and for the resources that we can offer this world.
Thank you, Trevor. And also, Trevor, your microphone is not liking you, so maybe in the future we'll try and get you. Brian's going to come work on that while you do that. We've got next one. You did get, well, we'll get, it's the tired one. Would anyone else want to answer to this? Yes, Lyle.
I would just like to acknowledge that this region is on the cusp of brand new land use planning with Indigenous nations, First Nations in this region. And the oil and gas industry is part of that. And I think for our economy and our community moving forward, that restoration, rehabilitation of our environment will become a job sector that will be booming. And it's to acknowledge the cumulative effects in our region, in our surrounding region, pardon me. And I think that those efforts can be translated into sustainable, climate-focused urban planning that reduces our carbon footprint. So we can really work together with the oil and gas industry. There's a lot of folks there, boots on the ground, that they really care about the environment too, and they really work hard to ensure that very little impact is done. I worked with a lot of those people as an archaeologist, so I know that they care. So for me, I always get a little upset when people kind of demonize an industry and say that they don't care, because they do. It's their families, it's their children's children that they're working hard for, and they want to make an industry that is sustainable and future focused. So,
thank you. Would anyone else like to add to this? We're going to move on to our next question. Last Friday marked an important day, as it was the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. How are you going to continue the work of reconciliation in our community? That question one more time. Last Friday marked an important day, as it was the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. How are you going to continue the act and work of reconciliation in our community? Would anyone like to answer this question? Amy? Excellent. Amy's one. Lyle, this is you as well. We have Byron and Tony and Sarah. We'll start at the far side and make ourselves this way. Amy.
All right. So I don't know if everyone has read about me in the papers, but I am status native. I am Muscophetan from Treaty 4 in Fort Capel, Saskatchewan, but I live here in beautiful Treaty 8 land, and I feel that it is fantastic that we do have Truth and Reconciliation Day, but I feel that Treaty 8 is a part of, it is our land. We are all living on this land, and I think it's beautiful, and we all do live together, just keeping respectfulness among our community and just enjoying one another. I don't feel that being Indigenous should be something that should be completely singled out. I think we can all just enjoy each other in our community, and land acknowledgements are fantastic. But every day for me is a celebration of being Indigenous, whether it's silent or it's open, and I think everyone else in the community can appreciate that as well.
Thank you. Lyle.
So I think it's to, thank you, just acknowledge that history and that generational trauma for truth and reconciliation, and then to just begin the healing, to have space for the conversation, to come together equally in a circle, and just allow the conversation and the healing to begin. For us as a community, it's really working with our Indigenous neighbors. They're community members, and their communities are located all around Fort St. John. Treaty 8 is very unique in British Columbia, and as I spoke earlier, that we're really coming together to co-manage this land, and I think it's wonderful that we continue the conversation, that we allow the space for the conversation, and that we acknowledge that history is there, and never forget, and teach our children, and just allow that space. So that's it.
Thank you. I believe next is Sarah.
Thank you. So I also agree with teaching the children. The history that I learned in school, it turned out, was not the true history of what actually happened. It wasn't until I took a course called Cultural Competency as a requirement for Northern Health that I learned what actually happened. And I'll be honest, I was in tears in my office as I went through and heard the stories of what actually happened with residential schools and such. So I would like our students, our children, to learn these lessons, age-appropriate ways. Also our parents, my parents grew up in even different times, and they don't necessarily know what actually happened back then. So I think getting the truth out there is our first step. And then the second step is really about listening, having the conversations with our First Nations neighbors. It's not for me to say what needs to be done. It's for me to listen and to hear what they think needs to be done. We need to create, as Lyle said, that space for the conversation and the space for healing. Also, there is the report on Truth and Reconciliation that the federal government did, and we can look at those recommendations, make sure that we are all familiar with them, and then start putting them into action. Thank you.
Byron.
The importance of Truth and Reconciliation Day is beyond important. It is a relationship that we have with our neighbors, with our friends, with those that we share our community with the lands surrounding our community. As Sarah said, history as a youth was fiction. And as an adult, it has taken a number of years for myself to understand that and to be in a place where I can learn and acknowledge that there was a great deal of pain and trauma for a large number of people that I know personally, and they're only one generation away from myself that were a part of a residential school program. And so we're learning, I am learning, I'm acknowledging, and the space to allow those conversations, as has been said here on the stage, is extremely important. I don't know the answers. I don't even know all of what I don't know about the history of our First Nations. But I have an interest, I have a curiosity, and I want to understand as much as possible with what is happening for our neighbors, what the emotions are, where they want to lead us into the future. Came here to the Lido the other night to watch a film program that was on the Sequoia, the caves at Charlie Lake. I learned a great deal just from a 1-hour film here in our area that growing up here I didn't know very much about. I'd seen the caves, but I didn't know that history. It is very interesting to find that there is so much history that has not yet been discovered, written about, or talked about openly amongst us. And I'm excited to know that council, we have relationships now with the neighboring communities. We have an urban city within our community. We are building those relationships stronger every day, and that brings a lot of pride to me as a citizen and as a council member for our community.
Thank you, Byron. And Tony.
Thank you. Truth and reconciliation starts with truth, and that's where it has to start with. And it has to be, as Sarah said, it has to be peer-to-peer. We can't talk to the students. It has to be students talking to students and seniors, elders talking to elders. And that's the only way we're going to get through them. How am I going to make a difference, or what it's done to me? I have actually gone to the Sequoia caves and taken a look at what it meant and been explained what the artifacts are and how long it's been there. I've also gone with the mayor to Prophet River to sit there for a whole day and learn about the spiritual healing and what goes on when they get together at a retreat out there. You have to take yourself out of that comfort level to immerse yourself what they have gone through and what they're doing themselves to, first of all, find their truth before they do the reconciliation. They are our neighbors, and we're going to welcome them in here, and the city is going to welcome them as well. We are going to do positive things together, and it will be an advantage to all of us, because it will bring work for the Indigenous and non-Indigenous people of our community. And it will build a better and inclusive community, because we will all prosper from this by the knowledge and understanding what they've gone through. But again, it starts with us understanding that, because the reconciliation will come later. Thank you.
Would anyone like to add to that? Gord? You know what? The system has gone sideways. Okay. I'm not gonna lie, but it is everyone. Just so you know, I've been watching this because I've been like, oh, your response should have been one. Everyone is still getting the same amount of things. Gord, if you would like to, you can definitely answer to that. You are all able to have. I know that you're all doing this. You're all having a chance to answer at least 4 questions. So okay. You all can use all of your cards. Go for it, Gord.
Thanks, Ted. Just very quickly, we were recently at the Union of BC Municipalities AGM and convention, and I attended a panel. And one of the First Nations speakers on that panel talked about truth and reconciliation, and it struck me that she said it doesn't have to always be a formal discussion or a formal program. It doesn't have to even, it's not always with the leader to leader. And that really struck me, because I realized the most meaningful for me, experiences for me, has been those one-on-one encounters and conversations. I remember sitting at the Festival Plaza with the members of DOIG and asking them what are probably really stupid questions, but they were very kind and understanding and answered and helped me to understand who they are and where they're coming from and some of that. And that really meant a lot. It meant a lot for me to listen. It was hard, but I remember last year very specifically at the Truth and Reconciliation Day in the park, hearing those stories of people who I know in our community who endured the residential schools. And for me, having that personal interaction with them meant so much. And I think for all of us, we can begrudgingly adhere to legislation or attend a program or an event, But I think it has to become a very much a heart issue for us and an attitude change so that we see reconciliation is something that we personally endeavor to achieve and pursue with our First Nations. Thank you.
Just to reiterate, candidates, if you do want to add, you are able to talk to 4 questions. And that is still equal across the board. No one has got special treatment. Jim, I see your card is in the air.
Yes, I would just like to add that just sitting here listening to everybody talk about truth and reconciliation, it brings joy to my heart. You know, the first thing about healing is talking about it. So just listening to everybody's stories here and talking about it, it's starting. So thank you.
Thank you. We're to move on to our next question. Fort St. John has done a number of large projects over the last few years, from redoing Centennial Park to working on 100th Street and more. What should the city's focus be when it comes to future infrastructure and capital projects? I'll say that one more time, and then I'll let's see your cards. I see yours, Trevor. Fort St. John has done a number of large projects over the last few years, from redoing Centennial Park to working on 100th Street and more. What should the city's focus be when it comes to future infrastructure and capital projects? At this point, everybody who can answer is answering. So we'll start at Trevor, and we will make our way down. Tony, are you sure? Okay. All right, Trevor.
Thanks, Ted. The city's committed. We've committed up to $27 million to be spent on capital. We have been fortunate to have projects such as the Festival Plaza, which required 0 tax money from residents in the city of Fort St. John for the capital construction of that. We were fortunate to build new buildings like the RCMP station, which again will not affect residential taxes or business taxes for the capital expense of that, because the city has taken a very long-term, sustainable approach to their capital improvements. The one thing that stands out for me right now is that over the past decade and a half or decade, as we've been paving roads, and we've gone from 36 kilometers of gravel roads, and we've got less than 8 kilometers right now. We did somewhere down around 6.4 kilometers right now. You know, we've continued to build. We've continued to ensure our water was good. We've continued to ensure that when you flushed your toilet, you didn't have to worry about whether that was coming back up or where that was going, because we've ensured those lines were redone. And it's no different than 100th Street, redoing all those lines underneath. And whether you like it being 2-lane or 4-lane or any of that is irrelevant, because it was ensuring that when you turned on your water, you got water. When you flushed your toilet, your sewer went away. And that's what that was about. So we will continue to do that. The big thing is more money in capital as far as road rebuilds, road overlays. We've spent too many years just spending $1 million here and $1 million there. It's time to look at a hardline item on that budget, whether it's $5 million or $6 million, whatever that number is, to get the existing roads back to par where these new roads are that everybody's, you know, that we deserve to drive on, and that we need to do that. We need to do that ASAP. So, you know, budget discussions are coming up evidently here in the next 2-3 weeks. That's where we need to start to ensure that there's funding there. That does not mean a tax increase. It does not mean stuff's going to go out. We need to hold the line on that, but we need to ensure that those are done and not forgotten about. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy.
There are 2 things that I feel are of utmost importance going forward for amenities and large projects. Number 1 is communication between our citizens and City Council. Everybody's voice matters in the opinion. I would love to make sure that there are more people who have an opinion, because that's how ideas grow and how we are able to have what we want/need as a community. Number 2 is that it's large enough that we can grow into it, because we are a community that is booming again, and I'm sure that we will continue to boom, and people will keep having children and growing, and more people will move here, and I would love to see something that our city can grow into and not immediately grow out of. Thank you so much.
Gord.
I may need to lend one of my cards. But anyway, infrastructure is oddly enough, I'm really in love with infrastructure. When I was a little boy, I would much rather build the fort than play in it, and that's just the way my brain operates. But you know, infrastructure in our community is one of our greatest assets, and it's vital that our infrastructure is continually being maintained and upgraded, especially as we grow, as we've heard already. At the same time, our infrastructure is one of our greatest risks if it's not taken care of and if it fails, whether it be the water system, the sewers, roads, buildings, whatever it might be. I serve on the board of the Municipal Insurance Association of BC, and in our discussions and through that work, and so they are the ones that insure municipalities and local governments across BC, I can assure you that the claims around infrastructure failures is one of the largest costs to any municipality, both in property damage and in liability. And so I know that it's so important that we continue to work on our infrastructure. And I know it's a pain when we have the detours and the road closed and all of those things, but it's so important. And I think the city does a great job, personally, of looking after those. We've gone back, we've assessed it. We had I remember a couple of years back, we did a sort of 100-year look at our infrastructure and our assets and what we're going to need financially and resource-wise to keep those maintained and to keep them growing with our community as it grows as well. And that was a great exercise for us to see just how much it's going to cost us to continue to maintain infrastructure, but it's so important. And so I hope that we continue to. I think we're doing a great job. As Councillor Boland said, we've been spending a lot of money on infrastructure, and it's not the glamorous stuff often, but it's so important, and it really is that foundation upon which our community is built. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim.
Yes, thank you. And like the other councillors said, we do spend a lot of money on infrastructure. This year alone, we're spending $71 million on our capital projects. And over the next 5 years, we'll be spending $171 million on capital projects. On the go right now on the books, we have the two major parks that we're spending $20 million on. And if anybody's ever walked through Kin Park or Sorors Park, you'll see a big difference, including Pickle Park as well. And throughout the year, we usually pave about 8 kilometers or so of pavement. And we spend about $1 million on our pavement. And one of the questions I think was asked is, what would I like to see as one of the more major capital expenditures in the next couple of years is a new aquatic center. And I think that is going to become a reality in the few years down the road. We just have to get a plot of land for it yet and get the drawings. But yeah, that's what I would like to see our next capital project is the aquatic center. So thank you.
Thank you. Sarah.
Thank you. Well, with my background in environmental public health, I would love to stand here today and talk about potable water and sewer infrastructure, but that's not what I actually feel is most important. I am also supportive and an advocate for a new pool and recreational center. Our current pool is failing us, both in size. Trying to get children into swimming lessons is near impossible if you do not wake up and log on within 1 minute of opening. Additionally, it's failing. We are losing water through leaky pipes. We have a hot tub that is a cold tub. It's never open, it's empty. So we need to put the money that we have coming from the Peace River Agreement into a new pool and aquatic center. We are not guaranteed this money long term. We hope it still is there because we want to keep our industry in the region long term. But while we know that we are getting it year after year, we need to be diverting funds to a new pool and recreational infrastructure center. Not just a pool. We need to see some indoor basketball courts and indoor play structure. Something I hear a lot of is moms don't have a place to take their children in the winter. They need to run off steam. They don't always want to take them to McDonald's where they're buying them food that's maybe not as great. And sitting there for hours. They also need a meeting place because people get lonely in our community. They're isolated. Spouses are out at work. And so you can be home with your children all day long. We need a meeting place that families can go to and that we have access to lots of different indoor amenities because we are a winter community. And while we embrace our outdoor sports,